Hello future psychs, welcome back to our channel. This is Charlene Lano and I am going to share to you the part 2 of the theory of personal constructs. But let us first define what is personal constructs. Well, according to Kelly, the reality of people is composed of their interpretation of unified, ever-changing world. The next one is, it is the means by which people make sense out of the world. So for the first and second definitions, it is clear that personal construct is our personal interpretation of the things or events that surround us. For example, you are bombarded with many final requirements. If you interpret this as something that will enhance you to manage your time well, that is already your personal construct. Now, this is also one's way of seeing how things or people are alike and yet different from other things or people. So, through our personal construct, we're able to compare and contrast. Your teacher, for instance, has a motherly attitude towards you, and they are somehow alike with your mother, but both of them differ from the strict attitude of the security guard of your school. The moment you compare your mother and teacher and then contrast them to the security guard, you are already making your personal construct. About the basic postulate, the personal constructs presented by Kelly has only one fundamental postulate, but it is supported by 11 corollaries. So the basic postulate of this theory claims that the person's processes are psychologically channelized by the ways in which that person anticipates events. More specifically, this claim is defined by Kelly with three key terms. First is the person's processes, and it refers to a living, changing, and moving human being, and humans themselves are the ones accountable for their own. The second one is the term channelized. For Kelly, it suggests that people move with a direction through a network of pathways or channel. Again, this term only emphasizes that people direct their processes for a purpose. The last one is the ways of anticipating events. It suggests that the person's processes are guided according to their predictions of the future. So that is the basic postulate of the personal construct. Again, the basic postulate is supported by 11 corollaries. The first one is the similarities among events, and it is the construction corollary. It states that no two events are exactly alike, yet we construe similar events so that they are perceived as being the same. And for Kelly's words, we anticipate events by construing their replications. The sunset, for example, has different shade or formation, and even if such things differ, we still see them similarly. That is, all of it is what we called a sunset. The second one is differences among people, and this is the individuality corollary, and it expresses that people differ from each other in their construction of events. One example for this is the variation of the definition we give to beauty. Beauty for others doesn't depend on how you weigh, and then others might say that someone is beautiful because they have white skin or brown-colored skin. All in all, even if they describe the state of being beautiful, they differ through how they define or interpret such quality. Kelly's third corollary is the relationships among constructs, which is the organization corollary. This one emphasizes that different people organize similar events in a manner that minimizes incompatibilities and inconsistencies. Let us make this picture as an example. Suppose that this woman, before buying her own car, she evaluated the ideas that if she buys the car, she will no longer spend too much in transportation, and if otherwise, she will continually ask monetary amounts from her parents or find a job to sustain her need for transportation. The time she evaluated such situation, we can see that there is a relationship between her personal constructs because they are made to avoid future conflicts. The next one is the dichotomy among constructs, or the dichotomy corollary. It highlights that a person's construction system is composed of a finite number of dichotomous constructs. And when we say dichotomous, it is represented by opposing or directly different things. For example, you are deciding whether you will use a dark neutral color for your notes or a light neutral color. Through that, the light and the dark are in contrast, and if you will choose which of which, that will lead us to the fifth corollary. The fifth corollary is the choice between dichotomies, and it is the choice corollary. People make choices on the basis of how they anticipate events. In line with my previous example, you will now decide if you will choose the light neutral or the dark neutral. And then you chose the dark neutral because it seems that it makes your mind lively whenever you reread your notes. The sixth is the range of convenience for the range corollary, and it assumes that personal constructs are finite and not relevant to everything. In other words, a construct is limited to a particular range of convenience. For example, you are classifying women according to their color, but the range is limited to this feature, and the height that they have won't matter. We are down to the seventh, which is the experience and learning. It is called as the experience corollary. If the anticipated events don't go as expected, a person might restructure his or her personal construct since there is already a lesson acquired from such experience. Next is the adaptation to experience or modulation corollary. It assumes that the extent to which people revise their constructs is related to the degree of permeability of their existing constructs. For example, the concept of intelligence for some is being able to fluently write and speak in English or able to solve mathematical problems. However, if the idea of multiple intelligences will be introduced to them, they might have new interpretation for the word intelligence. Hence, the construct can be flexible. The next one is the incompatible constructs or the fragmentation corollary. Although it may seem that personal construct must be compatible, sometimes there are still inconsistencies. For example, a man might be protective of his wife, but at the same time, he encourages her to be more independent. And in here, protection and independence are not compatible, but if we look closely to the general concept behind it, it occurs because of the construct called love. Next is the similarities among people or the commonality corollary. Two people need not to experience the same event for their events to be psychologically similar. They must only construe or interpret their experience in a similar fashion. For example, one may have come from a wealthy family while the other one comes from a less fortunate family, but both of them ended up having liberal political view. Hence, they have different experience yet similar political view. So that is for the 10th corollary. Finally, the social processes or the sociality corollary. People do not communicate simply on the basis of the common experiences or even similar constructions. They communicate because they interpret the constructions of one another. For example, for the young couple or the married one, they do not only observe the behavior of their partner, but they also interpret what that behavior means to that person. This corollary also exists between friendships. Then, Kelly also introduced the term role, and it refers to a pattern of behavior that results from a person's understanding of the constructs of others with whom that person is engaged in a task. Kelly mentioned two roles. The peripheral roles are those roles that are not directly innate in us. For example, being an employee, being a student, being a teacher, and the likes. And then the second is the core role. It is our self-identity, or it is composed of who we are really. That's all for part 2. You may now proceed to part 3. Thank you for watching.